Mobile, included for 1 year. Additional lines, just $30 each. Click, call, or visit a Spectrum store today.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Chris Welch. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. Newly elected Pope Leo XIV celebrating his first Mass as Pontiff Friday inside the Sistine Chapel. In his first homily, the Pope urged cardinals to make themselves small, echoing the humble approach of predecessor Pope Francis. Pope Leo began Mass speaking in English before finishing the rest in Italian.
To the ministry of Peter, you have called me to carry that cross and to be blessed with that mission.
President Trump Friday floating the idea of cutting tariffs on China to 80% as he looks to de-escalate a trade war. Top U.S. officials are set to meet with a high-level Chinese delegation this weekend in Switzerland in the first major talks between the two nations since President Trump announced the tariffs. The White House says the president will not unilaterally bring down tariffs on China, adding the U.S. needs to see concessions from Beijing as well.
The president has said, and he's right, China needs the United States of America. They need our markets. They need our consumer base.
Air traffic controllers Friday briefly losing radar access again at Newark International Airport in New Jersey. It's the latest incident, adding to concerns surrounding one of the nation's busiest hubs. The FAA says radar went black for 90 seconds, similar to what happened April 28th. And that's your Spectrum News in 90.
Welcome to The Big Deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. This program looks behind the headlines to focus on the future of our country and its people. This week, the big deal was the selection of Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost as the 267th leader of the Roman Catholic Church. The 69-year-old Chicago native took the name Pope Leo XIV, and his selection is a big deal for the United States and also for the country of Peru, where he worked for many years and holds dual citizenship. Pope Leo's leadership will shape the future direction of the Catholic Church in areas including the LGBTQ+ community, as well as social justice and the role of women in the church, issues where conservative and progressive viewpoints clash. Here's some reaction from Catholics all across the country.
I never expected somebody who has roots here in the United States to be named Pope.
We feel this deep connection now to the Holy Father.
He has charge of 1.4 billion Catholics around the world, and he's from Chicago.
It's the right person that's important and not where they're from.
I would like to see a continuation of what Francis started.
We need another liberal pope to include everybody.
He was a missionary, and that he knew a different part of the world and not just the United States.
Pope Leo XIV is first and foremost a child of God, and that means he is here to serve all of God's people.
Joining me now with more are two top political analysts. Holly Gregory is a political anchor for Spectrum Bay News 9 in Tampa, Florida. Kevin Fry is political reporter for Spectrum News based in Washington, D.C. And Kevin, apparently some very prominent American cardinals who have been in this for a long time were not familiar with Robert Prevost because he spent several decades as a missionary and a bishop in Peru. He was seen as a Latin American cleric, but he was born and raised in Chicago, went to school in Pennsylvania, right? Villanova. His brother says he grew up cheering for the White Sox at Comiskey Park.
Yeah, and that was a bit of a source of controversy on Thursday because there were initial reports that he backed the Cubs, and then his brother poo-pooed that and said, no, actually, it was the other Chicago team. No, I mean, he's spent several of the past decades overseas or outside of the United States, and in some ways, this kind of fills in an answer to one of the key questions we had after this announcement. There was no real expectation from most Vatican watchers that an American would be selected as the next pope. In general, the thought being that America already has powerful influence around the globe, both culturally and also just from a military standpoint and so forth. And so to add on this additional layer of essentially giving them the leadership of the papacy, of the Catholic Church, that might be a bridge too far. But the fact that he's an internationalist in some way, spending so much time overseas in Peru, in Italy, and so forth, perhaps that assuaged some of those concerns.
Okay, now, Holly, it is tempting to try and shoehorn a religious leader into our normal political categories like liberal or progressive or conservative, but this Pope really defies that easy characterization, doesn't he?
He does, and I don't think ever before in history, Errol, has there been such a scramble to try and read the tea leaves of a pope's social media accounts to determine which way he leans. But we all did that yesterday, and there were some clues on his, what we believe are his social media accounts. For example, he posted a link that was critical of President Trump and also the president of El Salvador for laughing at, for making fun of people who had been deported to the prison there. He also posted a link, an article that was critical of Vice President J.D. Vance. Vance had said something to the effect of, first you have to love your countrymen, your own country, and your own family first. And this article that the Pope had posted a link to said, no, actually, Jesus doesn't require us to rank our loved ones. So it seemed that he, leans against some of the Trump administration's immigration policies. But on the other hand, Errol, we know that Pope Leo is only supportive of what the church views as traditional marriage between a man and woman. He is 100% pro-life from the womb to the tomb, pro-life. And also most recently, during his time in Peru, he fought against teaching school children that gender can be fluid, saying that teaching kids that they can be something other than what God made them is just wrong. So I think even though there is this tendency in our divided world to pigeonhole him into one side or the other, I think it may end up being tough to do.
Okay, so now, Kevin, one of Robert Cardinal Prevost's final acts as a cardinal was to select his papal name, and he chose Leo XIV, and that actually does have some meaning. The last pope with that name, Leo XIII, was famous for addressing the modern economy. Tell us a little bit more about what's in a name.
Yeah, so Leo XIII, was the head of the Catholic Church at the end of the 19th and into the 20th century. If you're looking at a timeline, that is right at the end or right in the midst of the Second Industrial Revolution. So he did come out with this encyclical, which is essentially a message to the church and the world writ large when it comes to social issues, including maintaining fair wages for workers, standing up for workers and their conditions at the workplace. And so there is some reading into the selection of this name that perhaps this is an indication that now Leo XIV is going to pick up that mantle of kind of a social justice looking forward in fighting for the human condition. And this also, to some extent, does set up a potential through line from Francis, who, of course, also talked about caring for the least of these among us and also kind of looking at the modern world around you. When it comes to the economic messaging writ large, to kind of put it in the simplest fashion, Leo XIII argued against both laissez-faire capitalism and also Marxism.
Okay, so now, Holly, more than 20% of Americans are Catholics. That's about 53 million adults. More than 4 in 10 American Catholics are actually immigrants or the children of immigrants. So the question naturally arises how this American-born Pope is going to deal with President Trump and the mass deportation campaign. Here's what Cardinal Timothy Dolan, the Archbishop of New York, had to say about it.
Will he want to build bridges to Donald Trump? I suppose, but he would want to build bridges with the leader of every nation. So I don't think at all my brother cardinals would have thought of him as a counterweight to any one person.
Okay, so what kind of relationship do you think these two world leaders will end up having?
That is a great question, and that is so hard to predict, Errol. It's going to be fascinating to watch this play out because we've never had an American Pope. So I think just by the nature of that huge historic event happening, that whether the Pope tries or seeks it out or not, he is going to become a political figure in American politics. And here you're going to have, a personality within the Pope coming out and saying whatever he may say, and then you've got a huge personality in Trump, and how will those interact if they disagree on something? We just don't know how that might all play out. But to your point about the Catholic Church and Catholics and how they may vote, we do know that Hispanics are the largest group of swing voters in America, and they certainly swung the last election to Trump. Hispanic voters, by and large, particularly Hispanic men, very supportive of having a secure border. They did not like at all the wide open borders of the Biden administration. But as the deportations ramp up and the stories start to come out that, pull at the heartstrings, and what if the Pope weighs in on those? Could that potentially sway that large group of swing voters to go the other way?
That was a perfect segue, by the way, Holly Gregory, because coming up, we will explore why President Trump may be losing some support among Latino Americans, a voting bloc that he made significant inroads with during the campaign last year. The Big Deal is back in 2 minutes.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Bring it to the party, bring it to the top, bring it to the party. Never gonna stop.
Enjoy, unwind, connect with Spectrum TV on Demand. From the latest hit movies you've been waiting to watch to your favorite comfort shows and more, all available instantly for you to stream. Create the all-around entertainment experience you've always wanted with Spectrum TV on Demand. Browse over 80,000 on-demand titles today.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Back with the Big Deal. This week, we're kicking off a new series focused on the evolving landscape of voter demographics in our nation. And we're starting off with one of the most pivotal voting blocs in the 2024 presidential race. That's the Latino electorate. Last year, we saw a dramatic swing of Latino voters toward Donald Trump, who won 42% of their vote. That is up significantly from 2016 and 2020. In some states, the president made significant inroads by double digits, as seen in Pennsylvania and Texas and Florida. Today, we're going to analyze how President Trump was able to win their support and whether those Latino voters approve of his administration's actions so far. To start us off, we have Spectrum News reporter Vanya Patino, who spoke with some voters. Watch this report.
The prices for everything, food, gas.
The cost of living continues to be Philip Cortes's main concern as President Donald Trump passes 100 days into office. As a third-generation Latino, Philip's focus on the economy reflects what several national polls show, that this group votes with their wallet in mind.
Because I'm retired and I got 401ks. So like 2 or 3 days before the tariff thing hit, I switched all my stuff over.
Latino voters had not changed their standing on the president for the first couple of months of the administration. That is, until the tariffs kicked in, says Mike Madrid, political strategist focused on Latino voters.
And Latinos are the fastest growing group of economic voters. So if the economy is bad and he promised a good economy, you're going to suffer at the polls.
CNN, Pew Research Center, and Reuters polls all showed a significant drop in approval rating for President Donald Trump, ranging from 24 to 34%.
So virtually all of the gains, at least at this point in time, for Republicans amongst Hispanic voters has vanished.
But not all in this group are changing course. Emilio Orona, who is also a third-generation Latino, says he likes the actions the president has taken, especially around tariffs. He says he has noticed grocery prices are up, but argues that has been happening since before President Trump went into office.
People expect things to turn overnight. When Biden was doing this, nobody complained. Now that he's doing it, everybody's complaining.
In a national poll released by the nonpartisan group Unidos US, respondents ranked cost of living and inflation as their most important concern, followed by jobs in the economy, housing cost, and affordability and health care. Mike says the real lesson from these polls is for both parties to understand not reaching this part of the electorate can cost them an election.
Joining me now with more on the Latino vote is Philip Clint, an anchor for Spectrum Noticias, our national Spanish language news network, our sister network. Congratulations on the launch. We'll have a little more to say about that in a minute. I wanted to ask you about this new poll. It finds that 6 out of 10 Latino voters believe the country is heading in the wrong direction under President Trump. Is this buyer's remorse, do you think?
It sure seems that way, according to the poll. I mean, we're talking about, the numbers certainly don't favor Donald Trump and the Republican Party as we look towards the midterm elections next year. Almost 2/3 of voters, Latino voters, saying that they're not happy with the direction the country's taken, and a majority blame Trump. Donald Trump. So we have these tariffs that are upending the global economy. We have small businesses that are laying off workers and saying that we're going to shut our doors. Remember, a lot of Latinos are owners of small businesses, right? We have prices that still are pretty high, and that was one of the promises that Donald Trump said, I'll bring down the prices of eggs when I go into the White House. We have economists talking about the U.S. heading towards a recession. So all these factors are reflected in these numbers and this worry that things are not going well right now, then it might not be going well next year. They're saying you have failed us, you have broken your promises on the economy, especially with these trade wars.
Well,
right?
When the focus last year that I think got him over the top and really made some inroads was he focused among what they call low propensity voters who don't usually turn out, especially young men, and that includes young Latino men in particular, and it worked. What was drawing them to the Republican Party?
Well, I think there's 2 factors here. One is, a lot of these Latino voters were not old enough to vote, 8 years ago. So they don't remember those 4 years. Also, towards the end of the Biden administration, they're going I don't have a job, prices are still high, the future doesn't look that great. So I think that plays a factor in it. And also, if we look at the demographics in the country, we see, as you know, a lot of college-educated voters that are voting for the Democratic candidate, and a lot of blue-collar workers voting for the Republican candidate. And let's remember that a majority of Latinos make up the blue-collar workforce. So I think that's an issue. And also, let's talk about the Democratic Party. There's warning signs in this poll for Democrats as well, not only Republicans. And they're saying, a lot of these Latino voters are saying, listen, the Democratic Party is not reaching out to us. They're taking our vote for granted. And that's, I think, reflected in some of those changes. We'll see now whether those are long-term trends. And I think the midterm elections will give us a better sense. Latinos don't usually go vote en masse during midterm elections. But I think we'll see if they're galvanized because of these issues. And that will reverse that trend.
Right. we see that Latino voters are famously what they call ticket splitters. You know, they'll vote for Trump, but then also vote for a Democrat at the local level. But in our last minute, I wanted to ask you about immigration. I mean, it's always been an important issue. Right. We who are outside the community always assume that it would have, it would play a certain way. But of course, it gets very complicated, right? Especially when people live in mixed status family, where there's someone who's an American citizen and there are relatives who are not.
Yeah, and if you see this poll, we're looking at immigration as the fifth issue, right, behind other issues like the economy. But I think there are worrying signs here for Trump because immigration was a central part of his campaign. And we're seeing 60% of Latinos saying we don't agree with this policy of deporting people that don't have criminal background checks or background, that don't have a criminal record, or not giving due process to some of these people that are deported. And an issue that stands out to me is 66% of Latinos saying we need to give immigrants, soñadores, dreamers, a path to citizenship. That's not something we haven't been talking about recently, but that's obviously an issue that's very important to the Latino voter.
Okay, we'll be watching to see how all of that plays out. Thank you so much for coming by, Philip Klimt. And you can find Spectrum News Noticias by scanning the QR code on your screen right now, and then you go to the site on your screen to find your local channel. We are not done just yet. Coming up next, we'll take a closer look at President Trump's plans to reopen the notorious prison called Alcatraz. Stay with The Big Deal.
For the millions of school-aged children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive, regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms. Available on the Spectrum News app.
Look at this.
Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is what I feel when we're together.
Oh, that was funny.
It's all about connecting with seamless connectivity. And internet customers get 1 mobile line included for 1 year with Spectrum.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Watching The Big Deal. This week, President Trump called for the Bureau of Prisons to reopen Alcatraz, the notorious federal prison in San Francisco Bay. Alcatraz was once known for housing the most dangerous criminals, but closed more than 60 years ago, partly due to how expensive it was to operate that island prison. Spectrum News political reporter Ariel Wessler takes a closer look at the prison's history and what it would take to make reopening it a reality.
Welcome to The Rock.
Made famous in movies like The Rock and Escape from Alcatraz.
I may have found a way out of here.
The infamous prison has long been a part of pop culture. Alcatraz closed in 1963, called too expensive to operate by federal prison officials. The site is now run by the National Park Service as a tourist destination with around 1.6 million visitors each year, and it generates roughly $60 million in revenue.
It represents something very strong, very powerful in terms of law and order. Our country needs law and order. Alcatraz is, I would say, the ultimate.
Once a military prison during the Civil War, it later housed notorious gangsters such as Al Capone and George Machine Gun Kelly, as well as lesser-known convicts considered too dangerous to lock up elsewhere.
We need detention beds, and I think that's an appropriate place for the significant public safety threats, national security threats. Why not? I mean, what's the difference between that?
Do you have an idea how expensive it would be?
I have no idea.
And many experts say that's the issue. The cost of modernizing the prison and getting it up to speed would be exorbitant, not to mention operational costs. But despite recent cuts to the Bureau of Prisons, its new director says his agency will, quote, pursue all avenues to implement Trump's plans for Alcatraz.
Ariel Wessler, Spectrum News. Joining me now with more on this week's other big deal is Alex Cohen, a political anchor for Spectrum News Plus based in Los Angeles. As we mentioned, the National Park Service now has control over Alcatraz, which draws millions of visitors every year and makes money for the government. If it generates that much money for the federal government, what is President Trump's motive in trying to turn it back into a prison?
Well, Errol, just last night I was speaking to some of my journalistic colleagues at The Hollywood Reporter. They did some digging and uncovered that it just so happens over the past weekend, right before President Trump made this announcement, that the Clint Eastwood film Escape from Alcatraz aired not once but twice. Little kicker here, it also aired on a PBS station. As we know, he's been calling to defund PBS. But I think the important thing to keep in mind here is we think so much of Donald Trump as a president. He is also a showman. We know that he really values the idea of spectacle and TV. And I think that the mere fact of this famous prison and just how notorious it is for him inspires that kind of strength and American power over so-called, bad folks and criminals that he's been looking for some time.
What made the prison so expensive to operate back in the 1960s? And what would those costs look like today? I mean, how realistic would it be to reopen it?
Well, we saw there in Ariel's piece, right, the great amount of water between Alcatraz and the closest port. And if you think about it, those operational costs he mentioned, getting in clean drinking water, food, supplies, it is really difficult to do with an island that is that far away. But again, I'm going to make the showbiz reference here. I think about a guy like the famous YouTuber, Mr. Beast, right? He's created whole islands in the middle of nowhere with amusement parks on them. And I think, Mr. Beast and President Trump have some similar outside-the-box thinking. Yes, this might be crazy expensive, but they might find some creative ways to do this. Also, we should remind folks that, we've seen some of the conditions that prisoners have been held in other countries. They're not the most glamorous or comfortable, and a lot of it will depend on how comfortable this administration is with just how safe, secure, and the well-being of the prisoners, how much of a matter of importance this is to them. We don't know.
Okay, we will keep an eye on it. Thanks very much, Alex Cohen. Great talking with you. Thank you all for joining us for this episode of The Big Deal. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to your local station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To
understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
It's game time at the arena, and 20,000 fans are looking for a win. With an ultra-high-speed network and seamless Wi-Fi, fans can get in the door fast and share the game's best moments in real time. And with Spectrum Business committed to keeping them connected 100% of the time, they won't miss a second of the action. A secure, reliable connection from Spectrum Business means the fan experience is a guaranteed win.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum